Welcome to Abortion Ethics 101. I'm a physician and an ethicist. I teach in Switzerland, and this is an additional lesson in response to a comment. We do these sometimes in this class. So, class is in session. Welcome. And if you're only just now joining, please do catch up first by looking at the rest of the series. We will wait right here while you do this. And the comment today is, has anyone ever thought about the rights of a potential father-to-be? Just asking. There are actually two ways to answer this question. The quirky one, which would, I think, match the vibes of the comment, and the serious one. The quirky one would be, of course, everybody is always thinking about the rights of the father. We live under patriarchy. Men, as such, never get forgotten. It's others that sometimes do. But let's get serious. So, the most obvious right of a father-to-be that needs to be discussed, and I'm talking about rights here, not duties, because of course everybody here has rights and duties, but this question was about rights, so we're going to discuss rights. The most obvious right that needs to be discussed is the right to choose whether or not to become a parent. This is a right that people of all genders have. It's a different right from the right to decide whether or not to continue gestation if you are the person who is gestating. And looking at it in both men and women actually illustrates why this right is different, because there is no bodily autonomy issue if you're not the pregnant person, but there is still the issue of the right to decide whether or not to become a parent, and this is clearly a right everyone has, reproductive freedom. It's a pretty important right. One of the many problems with eugenics programs in the past was, and I think I'm going to have to do a video about eugenics again soon, but one of the many problems about eugenics was precisely taking that right away from people, making people reproduce on the one hand and preventing people from reproducing on the other hand. So yeah, reproductive freedom is pretty much up there. It's an important right. But it is not the only right in the room, because there are at least two other rights to consider. The right to bodily self-determination of the person who is gestating. And if you're the potential father-to-be, that's probably not you. And then there is the whole discussion about the rights of embryos and fetuses as well. How does the right of the father-to-be weigh up against the right of embryos and fetuses? It depends how much weight you give to the moral protection of embryos and fetuses. So here you re-invite the whole controversy around the status of embryos and fetuses there, and the only thing that you can say here is the more you believe that early embryos and fetuses have strong moral rights, the more you're going to think that those rights will outweigh a father's right to decide to not become a father. And the less morally protected rights you think early embryos and fetuses have, the more likely you are to think that a father's right to decide to be a parent or not might outweigh them. But this is not taking into account yet the bodily autonomy of the person who is gestating. Because here it's a lot clearer, actually, because if you were to give the father-to-be a right that outweighs the bodily autonomy of the person doing the gestation, it would mean that the partner here would have the right to either make an invasive intervention mandatory for another person, or would have the right to make gestation compulsory for that other person. And this is a very clearly disproportionate right to have over someone else. It's basically saying the body of this person belongs to you now. We cannot do that. And this is why, in case after case in different countries, fathers-to-be, potential fathers-to-be, have always been told the same thing. You do have rights in this situation, but your rights are not the most important rights in the room. They cannot be considered to give you the right to take power over the body, the physical body of another person. Now, the twist in the story, which usually makes many men and some women too, I have to say, very angry, but I will tell it to you anyway because it is a real twist in the story and we must face the truth. The twist in the story is that in many countries, the fact that a father did not want to become a father, if the partner goes on with the pregnancy and has the child, they cannot at this point decide to opt out of being legally considered to be the child's father, which means they will then have parental obligations, parental duties towards this child whom they never wanted to be the father of. Why is that? It's because once the child is there, it's no longer a matter of giving power to one person over another person. In that case, the child is the most vulnerable party in the situation. And one thing that everyone completely agrees on, regardless of their positions on any other aspect of the abortion debates, is that it is never the newborn's fault if the adults who led it to come into the world cannot get along. But this does mean that the interests of the child will now take priority, and it is in the interest of the child to have parents who are taking care of it. In Switzerland, if you give birth to a child, you are the parent of that child, and if you are the partner of the person who gave birth and you're not married, and you choose to not come forward and say, I'm the dad, the mother can declare that you're the dad and request a genetic test. You may refuse the genetic test, that is your right, but if you do, the judge will consider that you're the father unless you can prove you're not. And you are unlikely to be able to prove that you're not, especially if it turns out that you are. And so, yeah, it can happen that a potential father-to-be who does not want to be a father fails to convince their partner to have an abortion, and then the child is born, and then they are legally recognized as the dad, even though they did not want to be, and now have parental obligations towards the child. Because although the dad has rights, their rights are not the most important rights in the room. Yeah.